Did I fix it? I hope so. Anyway, some of this stuff on Facebook, as you know, we don't have any control of. So if you do see an interruption, that's usually not totally our fault. So sorry for the rough start there, but welcome, welcome. This is our third blog. We are going to be on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock every week talking about real estate, talking about specifics, that is to say, what actually happens during a real estate transaction? How do you actually get ready? You know, one of the things we don't want to talk about and bore you with on this particular blog is the 10 top things to do to get ready, or 10 top ways to figure out how to get a loan and stuff like that. What we're talking about on this blog is the actual transaction, the things that maybe can get in the way that'll make your transaction very frustrating, and you end up losing the house only because there's personalities that get involved, because there's a lack of understanding as to what some of your choices are. That's what we want to talk about. And we want to talk about strategy too. Now, that's a mouthful, what I've just said, and it could take literally months to explain all these things. So we take about 5 to 10 minutes every week and just tear a little bit of the contract apart so we can give you some strategy. And today, we're doing exactly what I said on the intro. We're going to talk about exactly what you do next, exactly what you do when, after you've gone to an open house, or you've visited a house a couple of times, whether it's open house or not, and now you know you want this house. So that's what we're going to get into today. Before I do, again, this is Facebook Live, and so we're able to take your questions or see who's online. I can take your questions right here on the screen itself, pose your questions, and talk with you directly. That's the whole purpose of Facebook Live. It's very funny. I had a very good client just do her very first Facebook Live blog about a few minutes ago. I was watching her before she came on, and I said, this really is more terrifying than you realize. It's not an easy thing to do, to be absolutely live, because whatever you say, it's out there. And so, my last couple of blogs, I've gotten used to it, and last week said something that was a little incorrect, and I did correct it on the comments below. So if I say anything that's needs to be corrected, I will put it down below so you make sure that you're getting correct information. And Randy is next to me today, just to make sure that I don't make any mistakes. And if I do, she's going to interrupt me and let me know how to correct it. So bear with us. We're getting used to this. It's a lot of fun, but it has its pitfalls as well. So what we're going to talk about today are what actually happens when you write an offer. Okay? You've been in the house, you've done your research, you've done everything during the last few months to get ready for this moment. What do you do now? Well, what you do next is you write what's called an offer. Now, the first thing you do when you write an offer is, believe it or not, you don't write it. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is an offer is a strategy. It's more than just offering a price. It's more than just hoping that all your ducks in a row and you hope that it work out. It's really a strategy. It's something you want to take time with, because, as I said on the last video, it's about 12 pages long. So within those 12 pages, there's a lot of information that you're going to impart to the seller or the owner of the property that's going to get a sense of who you are, whether they want to work with you, how well prepared are you? Are you really willing to get into this? Because there are a lot of steps, as we're discussing along the way. So what you want to do is actually take a seat back and figure, listen, I've done all my marketing. I pretty much know that this house is priced correctly or not, and I want to approach the seller based on a lot of different information. So the first thing that should happen is you need to make a phone call either to the listing agent or the owner themselves and get a sense of where they are. Because if you are sensitive to where they are, they're going to open up and let you know exactly what it is they want. And again, price, of course, is 90 to 95% of it. But you need the other 5% to make sure that the deal goes through. Now, we're not going to talk about price specifically today because that really is sort of a sermon in itself, and I'd like to get into that later. But what I'm going to talk about today are some of the things that actually happen in the offer. So when you're talking to that listing agent, or your agent's talking to that listing agent or the owner, what you want to do is find out where they are. Where are they? Is this a buyer's market? Is this a seller's market? Do they have a lot of offers? Have they had an offer in the past that was just not enough to get them excited? Where's their mood? So these are just a couple of things, and there's really a lot of things that a buyer's agent will figure out from a seller's agent as to what the status, what the feeling is of the owner. And that plays a huge, huge part in the strategy of your offer. Okay? So many, many times, thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars can be saved just in that initial phone call, because you're getting a sense and a perception of where the owner stands. Most owners want to sell their house as quickly as possible. They don't want to have any more open houses. They don't want to have any more disappointing offers. So these are little things that you might want to consider when you're writing your offer. Again, the offer is extremely very long, and there are so many other things that I could get into, but I'm going to keep it brief for today. Okay, so that's the first thing to do. Now, you've had your conversation with the owner. You've had your conversation with the listing agent. Now what do? Well, they're excited already because you've given them the courtesy and you've let them know that you're asking what we call buy questions. In other words, you're serious. You're not someone who's just kicking the tires on this particular house. You've probably offered that you've already, prepared your loan. You know exactly what you can do. You know exactly what you can offer. They're appreciative of the fact that you're doing the right things. That is, creating the correct steps to move forward, and you're not messing around. And by the way, an offer written is the only thing that people really take seriously. Simply making phone calls and making promises. Can I get a glass of water? And making promises means nothing in real estate. 98% of the people will not really pay attention until you write something, put it on paper, and present it to them. That's the only time when they really start to pay attention. So let me make that essential point. If you're serious, you will write it. A lot of people think if you just make a phone call to get a sense of what's going on, you're going to be productive. You are not. Those days are over, simply because the process takes too long. I'm losing my voice today. I don't know why. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, now what you should do is take a look at the contract. Hopefully you've read the basis of the contract before you get started. Because as I said in our last blog, that's the roadmap. That's where you're going to, for example, consider your contingency periods. Now let's pretend that you have other offers. And as I said in the last video, you have 17 to 21 days to get your act together to figure out whether you really want this house based on the contingency removal. That is to say, you can do your inspections, you can do all the research you need to do about who the owner is, are they legitimate, what the title is. All these things can be done in that period of time. Well, just a little tip. Sometimes if you're familiar with the process, which your agent should allow you to be, you'll cut some of those contingency periods, especially if you know you're against another competitor. In other words, another buyer who's already put in another offer. 17 days is plenty of days for a contingency period removal, but why not cut it to 14 days or possibly 10? We've had situations where we actually cut it down to 4 days. When there's 19 to 20 offers and you have to be competitive, we've cut it down as far as that because we're prepared to. And you know what? Most agents are prepared to do that. I don't want to scare you. That's not what happens typically. But these are the little things within your offer that will make a difference to the owner themselves. In other words, they're going to see that you're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to move forward. And that's a big key. when both sides are working on a time schedule and working towards agreeable changes in the contract, that's usually what makes a transaction a lot easier, and you actually overcome a lot of problems. Now, one thing I wanted to stress, when you make the offer and the offer is accepted, that means that you have both signed the fact that you're in agreement with what the transactional details are of the offer. It then becomes a contract. Now, extremely important point, when it becomes a contract, nobody can change it arbitrarily. The seller can't just make a change on the contract. You can't make a change on the contract unless the two of you have agreed that that change can happen. That escrow can't make the change. Nobody can make a change to that contract. And that's one of the reasons that we love this contract so much, because within the contract, and again, as I told you last time, it's at least 12 pages long, just the offer alone, is it allows for people the time and the strategy to maybe make a change to the contract wherein both sides agree, okay, this is a good idea based on something that's happened since you've gone into contract, and now we want to make a change. So that's why there's so much legalese. That's why the contract's so long. It actually tries to work with both the buyer and the seller, giving them opportunity to move forward. So again, that's the strength of an offer that turns into a contract. Okay, let me check my notes here. Okay, one of the most important thing you can do when you make your offer is having your loan in place if you need a loan. That's extremely important. All listing agents will take the time not only to see if you have one, but if they're responsible listing agents, they're also going to contact or potentially contact your listing agent to verify what the situation is with your loan. Now, what you can do, and you don't have to, but what you can do is you can actually give permission for the listing agent to call your loan company to verify everything. Now, they can't do that on their own, and they're not supposed to do that on their own. But if you want a little bit of an edge, if you want to show, God, I did do all this work, and you know the paperwork it takes to get a loan approval, I'd like to put it all on the table so the owner is reassured that, in fact, I have a very secure relationship with the loan company, and we're just days away from getting what's called an actual approval. Now, I don't want to get into approvals versus pre-quals. We'll get into that another time. But having an approval is the best way to go. So that should be incorporated in your offer as well. Now, again, I don't want to make this video too long. We could go into depth and make it. I have a preset lecture of about an hour just to how to strategize on this. And these blogs that we're doing on Facebook need to be relatively short. So I'm going to cut it off a little bit here by ending and saying that if you've strategized the way that you should, if you've made those initial phone calls the way that you should, things will work in your favor. And when situations come up, when it feels like things aren't working in your favor, dig into the contract with your buyer's agent, and I'm sure there's a solution in there somewhere. Note-taking is so important, and being able to read your notes is even more important. Okay, when you make the offer, I'll end up with this. When you make the offer, what happens is generally the owner gets about 3 days to look it over. And you can shorten that as well if you'd like, if you want to have a strategy wherein you want an answer right away. We actually suggest most of my buyers, when they make an offer, I ask them to go ahead and shorten that to 24 hours. Because owners know pretty much what they want, and within a 24-hour period, they can usually figure out whether they want it or not. If you give them more time, there might be another offer that can come in. Now, once the offer is accepted, and by the way, a small note, offers generally take about 3 bounces. That is to say, you make an offer, they look at it, they have some changes, they send it back, You take a look at it again, and then you offer back again. And within that stretch of communication, you get pretty close to getting your offer signed off. Offers can go as many times as they need to, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But I've seen, as a general rule, I've been doing this for about 18 years, I've seen as a general rule, whether it's a $100,000 house or a $30 million house, it makes no difference whatsoever. Usually 3 bounces is about the patience level that people have for one another. So if you can do that, I suggest it. That doesn't mean it can't go more. That means that there can be many more bounces than that. But as a general rule, people after about the 5th or 6th bounce get kind of tired, and it's a sense of emotions rather than logic at that point. You don't want to go there. You want to keep it logical. You want to keep it simple. Okay, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put them on my screen. A couple of housekeeping notes. We are again encouraging you to get our Fournier and Fournier HomeSnap app. Now, for those of you that haven't seen our blogs, the app actually allows you to take a picture of any house in America right on your cell phone and get the value of that house and also the value of other houses in the neighborhood. And so we'd like to give that app to you. What we're going to do is right after this broadcast, put the app link on the comments sections, and in the comments sections, you'll be able to just download give us your email address. We will send it to you, and then you can download the app. But it's a terrific new app that is by far more reliable than Zillow in terms of the information that you can get about that particular house, what its history is, what it was sold for last, the schools in the area, and it actually gives you the ability to get what's called a CMA right on your phone as well, all with the click of just the picture of the house. A CMA is a comparative market analysis, of the houses in the general area. So a lot of great information, and more importantly, it actually allows you to talk to Randy and I directly, real time, right on the app itself. Now, we won't see that you're on the app. We're not spying on you or anything. But what it does do is give you the ability to ask a question. So if you take a picture of a home, if you're out looking around and you take a picture of a home and you want just a quick question answered, just type it right on the screen itself. We get it right away. We'll talk to you right away. No pressure. Okay. That's it for today. We'll see you Tuesday, 10 o'clock every Tuesday. Next week, I think I'm going to get into price. What price should you actually offer and what the strategy is behind that. So again, if you are thinking of buying or selling in the next 6 months to a year or so, whether you're in this area or whatever area this particular video finds itself, we're happy to talk to you. Even if you're outside of our area, when our area is pretty large, we work most of Los Angeles, and especially the beach cities areas. We do have connections throughout the nation. We have very reliable sources, and we're happy to hook you up with those sources, okay? So we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Take care.